Hello, I'm Sarah, and you might remember me as the crazy lady who tried and nearly succeeded to stitch a Mirabilia in a month. Well, for my next project, I'm not going to try and stitch it in a month. I'm not completely crazy, but I actually would like to have it stitched pretty quickly because I have another project after this one that I would like to have finished by Christmas. So this project, it's not a Mirabilia. It's not 100 miles away from a Mirabilia because it is a Lavender and Lace, and it is Angel of World Peace. And I think it's a beautiful chart. Hopefully I'll be able to insert a photo of what it looks like a little bit closer up, and you can see that it has lots of beautiful colours. She's got a 1/1 face, which is my favourite thing about Lavender and Laces. I'm trying to stitch all the Lavender and Lace pieces with the 1/1 faces. I've already done 3, so this will be my 4th. And she's also got a globe behind her, which I think looks really, really cool. So on to materials. I've already prepped my materials. The first one is fabric. Now this chart calls for 32 count Zweigart Belfast linen in the colour Confederate Grey. Not 100% sure if you can still get Confederate Grey linen. I know they've changed some of the names around, but even at that, I'm not sure you can get the linen version of Confederate Grey. You can still get the Ada, I think. But anyway, I'm not stitching it on Ada or linen. I am stitching this piece on even weave. And I always talk about how much I love even weave and how I think it's the perfect fabric and it's the Goldilocks porridge of fabric. And yet I never seem to stitch anything on it, so I look a bit of a hypocrite. So this piece is going to be stitched on 32 count even weave from Zweigart in the colour Silver Moon. So I have that. I don't need to zigzag the edges because I bought it from another shop and it came with the edges overlocked or serged, which I really like. And I don't know, is that something, if you buy fabric, which I'm sure you do you prefer it to come with finished edges, like overlocked or serged edges? We say overlocked. I know in America they say serged. Let me know, because that is something I've been thinking for my own shop. Rather than sending the fabric out with raw edges, I could maybe look into buying an overlocker and do it that way. Not 100% certain, but yeah, it's definitely something I'd be interested in hearing your opinion on, if you have an opinion. Anyway, after the fabric we move on to threads. Lots of DMCs used in this piece because of how colourful her dress is. I of course keep my DMCs stored on Annie's Keepers, which I love. I am missing one, and that is 3773, and the reason is because that particular shade of DMC is not available in Europe. I think it's something to do with the dye. I'm not 100% sure, but you cannot get it in Europe. I do believe you can still get it in the US. And the substitute for 3773 is 407. Now, unfortunately, these are colours that are used in the face, and 3773 and 407 are both called for in her face, I'm pretty sure. So it means that you're missing out a tiny bit on some of the contrast because you're only using one thread when it calls for 2. It may not be the case with this one, but I know that that was the case with Angel of the Morning. It called for 407 and 3773, and I was using 407 for both of those, if that makes sense. Having said that, I still think it came out okay. Angel of the Morning is my favourite cross-stitch piece that I've ever stitched. I think it might be my favourite cross-stitch piece of all time, and it is a piece that I would be interested in actually stitching again. The last time I stitched it on 32 count linen, and this time I'd like to stitch it on 28 count and have a bigger version. But I will try and take a photo of her face in my completed piece, and you can see that even though, you know, I don't have the correct threads, I didn't have the correct threads, I think it turned out pretty okay. So anyway, that's the DMC, and then on to the speciality threads. Only 3 petite treasure braids called for in this piece. I do find that the Lavender and Laces tend to call for slightly fewer materials than the Mirabilias, which is nice. So we have PB14, which is the bronze treasure braid, PB02, which is that lovely Arctic gold, that very cold gold colour, cool gold colour. That's a tongue twister. Cool gold colour, which is one of my favourites. And then PB01, which is the more standard gold. So I do have them. I love treasure braid. I probably prefer treasure braid to Krynic. I think we had this conversation when we were doing the Mirabilia. We won't go over it again. Then for the beads, Mill Hill beads, of course, 40123, which is the petite cream, 40557, That one is the Petite Gold, and then 557 is the standard gold seed bead. So along with my beads, I do of course have my beading needles, as well as some Nymo thread, which is how I like to attach my beads onto my fabric. And then in terms of equipment, I have my scissors. I'm actually using a different scissors this time. I'm using a Bohan embroidery scissors with little lemons on it because I thought it was summery and I really like lemons. And I'm also using my beloved Bohan size 28 needles. I might actually move up to size 26 for this piece. I'm not 100% certain, but Bohan, they're just the needles that I always use and have loved since I started stitching. And then for a frame, a little bit undecided. For the Mirabilia, I used the Nerge snap frame and I absolutely loved it. I do sell them in my shop, and so I wanted to really see what I thought of them, and I absolutely love them. I probably will use that for some of this piece, but I've also got a new frame. It's not really, well, it is a frame. It's the Nerge like tabletop kind of scroll frame. They call it the Stitchery frame, I think. And this is something that I don't sell in my shop, but I have considered selling it. It is quite a big piece of kit and it comes in quite a big box, so it would mean that I'd have to change the way I send out orders. So I really want to be certain that it's something that I really like, and then if I do really like it, I can maybe consider selling it, because it's quite cool. It's basically a tabletop frame, and then the bars, the 3 bars that go across both ends and the middle, they can be changed for different sizes. So it comes with bars that are 30 centimeters long, and then you can also get 40 centimeters and 60 centimeters. My piece of fabric is quite big, so I'll probably use the slightly larger bars. I just need to see what's kind of going to work the best for this piece, or maybe I'll start off small and then as the piece expands I'll move and change around a bit. So yeah, that's the frame. I also think it's going to make it easier to film the stitching. I know for the last project, which was the Mirabilia, actually a lot of the stitching wasn't filmed, and that's because it was really hard to try and hold the frame, hold the frame and then film and then kind of work around it. So I'm hoping with this tabletop frame that it might just make that filming a little bit easier. I know there was someone who was a little bit disappointed that I didn't film stitching the face of the fairy, and yeah, that was a really good point. And I was just so tired by the end of that piece. I wanted to get it finished, but I didn't probably film as much as I should have, and I do regret that. So for this piece I'm going to try and rectify it, and hopefully that tabletop frame, because it's more stable. I know a lot of people say you can buy the ones with the clamps, and you can, but I find that they tend to wobble, and then if you're looking at it through a screen it can be a bit like seasicky. Having said that, I am aware that this camera is currently wobbling because it's so breezy and because I'm standing up and it's quite high off the ground. So yeah, bit of hypocrisy there, but anyway. So I'm going to start today, record a week, and then hopefully do weekly updates until the piece is finished. And if you're wondering why I've left my chart in its plastic pocket, it's because there's birds flying around and I'm afraid that one of the birds will relieve themselves on my chart, basically. And if you're wondering why I'm standing outside when I do have a perfectly good house, it's because it's sunny and I want to have video documentary evidence, I suppose, of the sunshine, because when it starts raining, it'll probably rain for about 6 months solid and we'll never see the blue skies until next summer. So that's why I'm trying to create something to hold on to. But that's all for this video. Thank you for watching if you've made it to the end of my rambles, and I will see you in the next one when we are going to start stitching this piece. Oh, I forgot about materials. Oh. Oops.